The Simple Path to God, discovering the way back to authentic faith. Father Spiridon Bailey is a priest of the Diocese of Great Britain and Western Europe of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, serving in England and Ireland. On this video podcast, he applies the teaching of the Church Fathers to modern life with reference to the Sunday Gospels. Here now is Father Spiridon.
One of the things we must do if we're to face our suffering correctly is to understand it. St. Gregory Palamas tells us that all that is evil in itself originates from us, because it is sin. It originates in sin. And so all that is evil originates in the sin of man. But what we perceive as evil is often a misunderstanding, a misjudgment. When we suffer, when we experience pain and fear, we assume it's evil because we don't like it. It goes against our will. We immediately presume that all that makes us suffer must be evil. But in reality, like a physician, God uses suffering to restrain what is evil. To restrain and to heal us. So there are times when our suffering is far from evil, when it works to bring us healing, to bring us to our senses and so on. Now this is hard to hear. It's hard to hear particularly when we are afraid and when we are suffering. I know this. Within the last 24 hours, a member of my own family died from coronavirus. It's a hard lesson, but he knows what it is that we need beyond what we know and what we want. And even holy people, God sometimes afflicts in order to challenge them, to strengthen them, to bring them on in the spiritual life, help them grow. But of course we who are not holy are far from this. Too often we only judge sickness in terms of the body. We are very aware because it causes us a pain that we can feel. But far more dangerous and far more important is the sickness of the soul. Sicknesses of soul that is a rejection of God in the way we embrace the world, the pleasures of the world, carnal pleasures, the distractions of this world. The way we embrace anything and place it between ourselves and God. This is a true sickness of the soul, far more dangerous than any sickness of the body. And we should be more concerned with the spiritual sickness than with any virus or sickness of the body. Because when we are infected in the soul, when our soul is so polluted with things that are alien to God, we are choosing death. We are rejecting life. The sickness of the soul is truly death, spiritual death. And so God calls us to a way of life that will protect us from this sickness. He gives us commandments, not arbitrary commandments, but commandments that will guide us in the way of life and avoiding death. Commandments that will help us to avoid unnecessary suffering. And we, when we choose to be obedient to God's commands, choose life. Let us think of the Hebrews. The Hebrews, when so many of them fell into idolatry or lost faith in God, it was the whole tribe of people that suffered. The whole tribe was led into the wilderness for 40 years. Were there not any just people, any faithful people among them? Of course there were. And it wasn't their place to then say, well, this is unfair. Why me? I didn't do this. They suffered as a people, but they suffered as a people not as an arbitrary punishment, but so that they may reach the promised land, that they may be prepared, that they may be capable of inheriting the promises of God. So long as we are disobedient, we remove ourselves from grace, we remove ourselves from the mercy and compassion that God offers us. We choose death. At the moment, many people are using this phrase, self-isolation. And for some it can be very difficult. But we think of St. Mary of Egypt, who lived a very sinful life, a carnal life. And when God called her to her senses, she left and for decades lived out in the desert, a true self-isolation. And through this process, she was healed, she repented. She repented of her sins, and God was able to work great miracles through her. She should be our example now, in this time we have. For all of us, time is running out. Father Seraphim Rose used to say, it's later than we think. But for now, we have today, a sign of God's mercy, a sign of God's willingness to allow us to repent. He gives us this life, this moment, this new day. In his tolerance of our evil, a tolerance of our sin, he gives us a fresh day to repent and to find his mercy, to hear his voice calling to us, to turn away from death and embrace life. So let us turn away from all that is evil. He will make us worthy of salvation. In his mercy, in his compassion, he will make us worthy. So let us turn and let us be obedient to the commandments of life.
The Simple Path to God, discovering the way back to authentic faith. Father Spiridon Bailey is the author of several books, including Orthodoxy and the Kingdom of Satan and Journey to Mount Athos. You can email Father Spiridon at simplepath@ancientfaith.com. That's simplepath@ancientfaith.com. This has been a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.